My grandparents defended me for the first time, and my parents lost it. I, 16M, am currently sitting in my room with my door locked while my parents are downstairs whispering aggressively to each other. My grandparents left for their hotel about an hour ago after another massive blowout fight, and the tension in this house is so thick you could cut it with a knife. I'm writing this because I honestly need to know if I'm the sociopath my parents are making me out to be, or if I finally just stood up for myself. To understand why this happened, you have to understand the dynamic of my family. For the first 8 years of my life, I was an only child. My parents always told me they wanted a big family, but it just wasn't happening. I found out later they started trying for a second kid when I was only 6 months old. It took them years of doctors, specialists, and eventually expensive fertility treatments to have my brother, 8M, and my sisters, 6F and 5F. Because they were miracle babies, my parents completely pivoted. I went from being their world to being the easy kid who could take care of himself. As they had one kid after another, I became less of a son and more of a background character. I was the one who had to be quiet during naps, the one who had to give up my toys because they're just little, and eventually, the one who lost his birthday. The sharing the birthday tradition started when my brother was 1. For my 9th birthday, I wanted to go to a trampoline park. My parents said no because the baby couldn't jump. We stayed home. When I blew out my candles, my mom held my brother and helped him blow them out before I could even take a breath. I remember crying that night, and my dad told me I was being selfish because my brother didn't understand and just wanted to be involved. It only got worse as the girls were born. Every year, my party was just a family gathering where my siblings were the stars. My parents would buy them on-birthday gifts so they wouldn't feel left out while I opened mine. Eventually, the sibling gift pile became bigger than my own. I'd get a pair of headphones, and they'd each get 3 or 4 Lego sets or dolls. It reached a point where I stopped asking for anything because watching them tear into presents on my day made me feel sick. This year, for my 16th, my maternal grandparents, mom's parents, decided to come stay for the actual party. Usually, I go to their house a week early to have a real birthday with them, where they actually focus on me. They're very blunt people. They don't do the gentle parenting thing my parents try to do with the younger kids. They've dropped hints over the years that they don't like how I'm treated, but they usually stay quiet to keep the peace. A few days before they arrived, I was talking to my grandma on the phone. She asked what kind of cake I wanted. I told her, it doesn't matter. Get whatever the kids like. They're the ones who are going to blow out the candles anyway. And make sure you bring gifts for them, otherwise mom and dad will get stressed out that they're jealous. There was a long silence on the other end. My grandma just said, "We'll see about that, honey." When they arrived, the atmosphere changed. My grandparents were watching everything. They saw my mom taking the younger kids to the store to pick out special treats for them to open during my party. They saw my dad telling me I needed to help clean the playroom so the guests had a place to sit, even though it was my siblings who made the mess. The day before the party, my grandparents confronted my parents in the kitchen. I was sitting in the living room and could hear everything. My grandfather asked why there were more gifts for the 8, 6, and 5-year-olds than for the 16-year-old. My mom did that high-pitched laugh she does when she's lying. "Oh, Dad, it's just how we do things. We want the kids to feel included. You know how hard it is for little ones to watch someone else get all the attention. It's about teaching them love and sharing." My grandmother snapped back, "No, it's about teaching them that they are the center of the universe. It's his 16th birthday. It's a milestone. Why are you treating it like a group playdate?" My parents tried to flip the script. They told my grandparents I had become a sullen, bratty teenager and that I was manipulating the situation to make myself look like a victim. They literally lied to my grandparents' faces, saying I asked to share my birthday gifts. The day of the party, my dad's side of the family came over. This side of the family totally enables my parents. They all brought sibling gifts, too. It's like a weird cult where no one is allowed to have a moment alone. I was sitting on the couch, just waiting for it to be over. My mom came up to me and whispered, "Make sure you stand between your sisters when we do the cake. They've been practicing singing Happy Birthday for you all day." I looked at her and said, "I'm not standing up. I'm just going to sit here. If they want to blow the candles out, they can reach the table themselves." Her face turned red. "Don't you dare ruin this with your attitude." When the cake came out, the kids were already hovering. My 5-year-old sister was literally leaning over the cake, spit almost hitting the frosting, waiting to blow. My mom started the 1, 2, 3 count. I didn't move. I didn't lean in. I just leaned back in my chair. The kids blew out the candles. My dad's side of the family cheered. Then, my grandfather stood up. He didn't yell, he just spoke in this very cold, calm voice. Since the birthday boy didn't even get to participate in his own cake, I think we can skip the gift opening. Clearly, this isn't his party. The room went dead silent. My mom tried to play it off. "Oh, Dad, don't be so dramatic. Look, the kids are so excited. Let's do the presents." She started reaching for the huge pile of gifts for my siblings that they had tried to hide in the hallway closet earlier. I stood up then. I pointed at the closet. "Are those for me? Or are those the jealousy gifts you bought so they wouldn't cry?" My grandparents walked over, opened the closet, and saw the stack of toys for the younger kids. My grandmother looked at my dad's sisters and asked, "Is this what you all think is normal? A 16-year-old getting 2 shirts while the younger kids get a toy store haul on his birthday?" It turned into a massive screaming match. My dad's side was defending my parents, saying that family is about sharing. My grandparents were shouting that my parents were erasing me. In the middle of the noise, my siblings came up to me. They were confused. My 8-year-old brother asked, "Where are our toys?" "Mom said we get toys today." I looked down at him and said, "You don't get toys today. It's not your birthday. Someone finally decided that my day belongs to me, not you." He started to cry. Then my sisters started to cry because they realized they weren't getting the dolls they were promised. My mom ran over, grabbed me by the arm, and told me I was evil for hurting my siblings' feelings. I told her, "The only reason they're crying is because you lied to them and told them my birthday was theirs. That's on you." My grandparents told my parents that they are failing me as parents. They offered, right there in front of everyone, for me to move in with them. My parents screamed, "No way," but more because they didn't want the embarrassment of me leaving. It's been 3 weeks. My dad's side of the family is split, some apologize to me, but most are siding with my parents. My parents are absolutely miserable. They tell me every day that I destroyed the family harmony. They want me to apologize to my siblings for stealing their joy and making them feel unwanted. They are literally demanding I buy my siblings the gifts they didn't get to open that day using my own savings. I refused. Now, they've taken my phone, I'm writing this on an old laptop, and told me I'm grounded until I fix the damage I did. My grandparents are calling every day, arguing with my parents, and trying to get legal advice on whether I can move in with them since I'm 16. My siblings are still moping around, and my brother told me he hates me for ruining the party. Am I the a-hole? My parents keep saying that at 16, I should be mature enough to let the little kids have their fun, and that by making a scene, I proved I'm just a selfish kid. But for the first time in years, I don't feel like a background character. I just feel exhausted. Update. It has been almost 4 months since my birthday, and the house doesn't feel like a home anymore. Before all of this, things were unfair but predictable. I knew my role. I stayed quiet, helped when asked, avoided arguments, and counted down the years until I could leave for college or work or anywhere else. After that day, everything shifted into something colder and more deliberate. My parents stopped pretending the problem was a misunderstanding. They decided I was the problem itself. The first week after the party felt like living under surveillance. My parents barely spoke to me unless it was to criticize something. Every conversation somehow circled back to how embarrassed they were, how I had humiliated them in front of family, and how my grandparents had turned me against them. They framed it as betrayal rather than conflict, like I had broken some invisible contract by letting other adults see what life was actually like. The punishment didn't stay limited to grounding. They removed my phone indefinitely, shut off my internet access except for schoolwork under supervision, and started assigning me extra chores that had nothing to do with normal responsibilities. Cleaning became symbolic. I wasn't just cleaning messes, I was being reminded that I owed the family for the damage I had caused. My siblings watched all of this happen, confused but absorbing the message that I had done something terrible. What made it worse was how my parents rewrote events around the younger kids. They told them their presents were taken away because I had been selfish and refused to share. My brother stopped talking to me for nearly 2 weeks. My sisters avoided me like I was contagious. I could see they didn't fully understand, but they believed what they were told because they were young and trusted our parents completely. My grandparents called constantly during that time. At first, the conversation sounded calm, but that didn't last. I would hear my parents arguing loudly after hanging up, accusing my grandparents of interfering and threatening legal action. One night I overheard my mom say that if they kept pushing, they would cut contact entirely. That was when I realized this wasn't just family drama anymore. Adults were choosing sides, and I was at the center whether I wanted to be or not. About 2 weeks after my birthday, my grandparents asked to meet me outside the house. My parents refused at first, but my grandparents showed up anyway and waited in their car across the street. Eventually my dad let me go, mostly because neighbors had started noticing the tension and he didn't want a scene. That was the first time anyone asked me detailed questions about daily life instead of just reacting to the birthday incident. My grandmother asked about school, meals, chores, birthdays over the years, punishments, and whether I felt safe at home. My grandfather mostly listened, occasionally asking for clarification about timelines. I didn't realize at the time that they were documenting everything. A week later they told my parents they were pursuing legal guardianship. The reaction inside the house was explosive. My parents treated it like a personal attack, not concern. They accused my grandparents of trying to steal their child and destroy their reputation. For days afterward, my parents alternated between anger and forced affection, suddenly acting overly attentive toward me whenever other adults were around. It felt staged, like they were rehearsing for something. Then the court paperwork arrived. I had never seen my parents scared before. Angry, yes. Defensive, always. But scared was different. They started consulting lawyers, whispering late into the night, and coaching my siblings to talk about how happy our family was. My mom sat me down and explained how courts tear families apart and implied that if I cooperated with my grandparents, my younger siblings could lose stability. It was the first time guilt was used in such a direct, calculated way. The first hearing happened about a month later. I wasn't allowed inside for most of it, but I remember the waiting room clearly. My grandparents sat quietly beside me while my parents avoided eye contact. The atmosphere felt less like family and more like opposing teams before a game nobody wanted to play. That hearing was mostly procedural, but it established something important. The court took my grandparents seriously. They weren't dismissed as overprotective relatives. The judge ordered an investigation, including interviews with teachers, counselors, and a court-appointed evaluator. After that, everything intensified. A social worker visited the house twice. During those visits, my parents transformed into completely different people. Suddenly there were structured family dinners. My siblings were encouraged to include me in activities. My parents praised me constantly in front of the evaluator in a way that felt unnatural. The moment the visits ended, the atmosphere snapped back to cold resentment. At school, I was pulled out of class to talk to the evaluator alone. Those conversations were harder than I expected. I wasn't asked whether my parents loved me. I was asked whether my needs were prioritized, whether I felt emotionally supported, and whether I believed consequences in the house were fair compared to my siblings. Answering honestly felt disloyal even though I knew it shouldn't. The second hearing was where things became ugly. My parents' lawyer argued that my grandparents were manipulating a normal teenage conflict into a custody dispute. They described me as moody, jealous of younger siblings, and influenced by relatives who disagreed with modern parenting styles. Hearing myself described that way while sitting only a few feet away felt surreal. It was like listening to strangers talk about a fictional version of me. Then my grandparents' attorney presented evidence. Photos from birthdays over the years showing uneven gift piles. Statements from relatives who admitted sibling gifts were expected traditions. Notes from my school counselor documenting feelings of exclusion long before the party. Even attendance records showing missed parental involvement at school events. The room changed after that. The argument stopped being about one argument and started being about a long pattern. The judge ordered a full custody evaluation and scheduled a final hearing. Those weeks in between were the hardest period I've ever lived through. My parents became increasingly hostile, though careful enough not to cross obvious legal lines. They restricted my interactions with my grandparents, monitored conversations, and repeatedly reminded me how humiliating it would be if I left. My siblings sensed the tension and acted out more, which my parents blamed on me. I started counting days not toward adulthood, but toward the court date. The final hearing lasted almost an entire day. I was interviewed privately by the judge. That part is burned into my memory because it was the first time an adult with authority asked what I actually wanted without interrupting or correcting me. I explained that I didn't hate my siblings, that I never wanted them hurt, but that I felt invisible in my own home. I explained birthdays, expectations, punishments, and how being labeled the easy kid slowly turned into being the ignored one. I wasn't dramatic. I was exhausted. When the decision came, it didn't feel triumphant. It felt quiet. The judge ruled that remaining in my parents' home was not in my best emotional interest and granted guardianship to my grandparents. My mom cried. My dad argued until the bailiff asked him to stop. My grandparents didn't celebrate. My grandmother just held my shoulder while paperwork was finalized. Leaving the house afterward felt strange. I packed my belongings while my siblings watched silently. My brother looked confused more than angry. My sisters asked if I was coming back after a sleepover. My parents barely spoke to me, except to say I had chosen this outcome. The drive to my grandparents' house was silent except for the sound of the highway. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like background noise. I felt steady. Not happy, not relieved exactly, just steady. Like something that had been tilted for a long time had finally been set upright. And now that I'm here, the weirdest part is how normal everything feels. Dinner happens without competition. Conversations don't revolve around managing younger kids' emotions at my expense. When my grandparents ask how my day was, they actually wait for the answer. The custody fight wasn't a victory lap. It was messy, exhausting, and exposed parts of my family that probably would have stayed hidden forever. My parents still believe they were right. Some relatives agree with them. Others have reached out quietly to say they didn't realize how bad things were. I don't know what my relationship with my parents will look like later. Right now there's distance, court-ordered schedules, and a lot of unresolved anger. My siblings call occasionally, and those conversations are awkward but calmer than before. What I do know is that for the first time, I'm not waiting for permission to exist in my own life. And I'm still wondering if standing up for that makes me the villain they say I am, or just a kid who finally stopped pretending everything was fine.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update for more such stories.